Thank you. I would just like to add that this has been an unbelievable visit by President Donald J. Trump to Paris in France. Not many people know that. Paris is a city in France. I know that. It's been wonderful meeting President Manny, as I like to call him. Manny sounds a little Hispanic, but he's still a good guy. Says nice things about Donald J. Trump. Absolutely. And very strong handshake, I noticed. Very good. I used to think of French people as a bunch of faggy surrender monkeys. Not true. Not always true. Definitely. Do you know that France was our first ally in the Civil War for independence? That's right. France was, not many people know that, but that's true. France, our first ally. And it was a pleasure getting to meet your wife, Mrs. Manny. I'm sorry about that bit about calling her your mother. In America, we don't tend to marry older women. We like them younger, more like our daughters. But still, a hell of a woman. Great body for a woman that age. Real tight for a woman of her age. If I were older, I would definitely want to hit that. A definite 6, anyway, if I were like 90. Of course, if I were like 90, then she'd be pretty old too, so I wouldn't hit that. But still, if I were 90, I would definitely be maybe doing a woman her age. Hello, Manny? Manny? Where'd he go?
It's time for Forward Nation Radio. Now here he is, the host of Forward Nation Radio, David Leventhal.
Welcome to Forward Nation Radio with me, David Leventhal. Thank you for joining us this week. As always, on today's show, we will be spending some time on the news. No shock there. We will also spend a little bit of time talking about what Trump has accomplished so far in his administration. All right, let's get right into it. And the news. Well, let's start off by going to Russia. What a surprise. More information keeps coming out about Donald Trump Jr.'s, Jared Kushner's, Paul Manafort's meeting with Russians that they, had forgotten to mention 10, 12, 150 times or so. Well, a meeting that started out as basically enough people for a doubles tennis match escalated when more information came out to a basketball team, is now approaching a baseball team, and by the time we talk to you next week, we may find out that the meeting was attended by more people than attended Donald Trump's inauguration. In other words, a soccer team. So lots of people were there, and yet it seems to have slipped everybody's minds. I think at this point in time, Jared Kushner must be spending his days sitting in the ethics office or wherever it is that you fill out the paperwork to get your security clearance. And as more information comes out, keeps whiting out whatever he just lied on the previous form so that he can adjust it to the information that's come out and keep changing that as it goes. No less than Fox News has started to come out and say, I think you guys just really need to come clean already. Fox News and the Wall Street Journal editorial page, bastions of right-wing republicanism, saying it's probably just time to unload everything. Not because that would be the good thing, of course, for America, and we should know what our president is doing. They just think that would be a good political strategy for their boy in the White House. And by boy in the White House, I, of course, mean boy in the White House. Okay, other news about Russia, of course, is we're finding out that Donald Trump met with Vladimir Putin a little bit more than we had thought when they were at the G20 conference. And Donald Trump and his aides have pointed out that Donald Trump developed a rapport with Putin. A rapport with Putin? This is the way we respond to a guy who we now absolutely know for certainty sought to undermine and undermined a United States presidential election. We try to make nice with him? Is this America First? Is that what America First is all about? Putting the interests, I guess, of Russia ahead of that? You know, what little sanctions that Obama imposed on Putin and Russia and his cronies as a result of the election hacking and interference. We should be expanding on that. We should, in effect, I don't want to use words declare war, because that, of course, is way too fraught. We certainly do not want to go to war with Russia. But we need to be looking for more ways to sanction Putin, punish Putin, isolate Putin around the world. Buddying up to him? If we're looking for evidence of collusion, blackmail, whatever it is, the President of the United States in a position to not represent the interests of Americans when it comes to a hostile foreign power, but instead to promote the interests of that hostile foreign power, wouldn't this be just the kind of stuff that we're looking for? Does this not bother Trump voters? What this guy did and engineered through the Russian government, undermining a U.S. election, basically sticking a huge middle finger out to the United States of America. And how do we respond? By basically saying, what a great guy. That's pretty screwed up, and somebody has to explain the America First aspect of that to me, or even the Making America Great aspect of that. All right, let's move on off of Russia. We'll obviously be talking about this story every week. The other big story of the week is healthcare. Here's something to celebrate that we did not have: the repeal and replacement of Obamacare. Turns out the Republican effort to replace Obamacare couldn't even appeal to all of the Republicans in the Senate, despite the guns that were put against people's heads. I think the effort to replace Obamacare, which was subsequently followed by an effort to just repeal Obamacare, which also failed, couldn't get all the Republicans on board. I think this whole effort was summed up best by one of the few Republican holdouts that torpedoed the effort, Shelley Moore Capito, the senator from West Virginia, who said in blunt, precise language that really should be on the front page of every newspaper, "I did not come to Washington to hurt people." That was her rationale for not supporting Republican efforts on health care. I did not come to Washington to hurt people. Leading people like me and presumably most of the Republican establishment to say, then why the fuck are you a Republican? If you didn't come here to hurt people, why are you a Republican? Why aren't you voting with the Democrats? Oh, is that partisan, one-sided, nasty to Republicans? I get that a lot. What exactly is it in the Republican agenda that we've seen over the last few months, the Trump Republican agenda, that has not been about hurting people? Taking away health care from millions? Thousands of additional American deaths each year? Deregulating our businesses so they can pollute more, they can harm their workers more? Not promoting labor rights and labor issues? Allowing for-profit colleges to get back in the game of ripping off students? A budget, tax cuts for rich people, taking away programs from poor people, social safety net, undermining. What exactly is it in the Republican agenda that is not about hurting people? This sentiment was reflected very well by no less than the President of the United States, who again famously said, "Let's let Obamacare fail." With glee. That's what he said. Let's let Obamacare fail. Then we'll start over and we'll get a great bill. Just more bullshit that keeps coming out. They couldn't get the bill the first time. They couldn't get it the second time. They couldn't get it the 10th time. So now we're going to get rid of Obamacare, and magically they're going to come up with the solution that's going to make everybody happy, that somehow managed to elude them all this time previously. Charlie Brown, she's not going to hold the football this time. She's still full of shit. Poll came out. This is Donald Trump's disapproval rating was at 60%. Territory unheard of at this point of a presidential term. 36% approval rating. There were several other polls had that number a little bit higher in the 30s. The only question that one can ask from that poll is, where are you possibly coming up with this 36%? Who can be supporting this at this point in time? Okay, the Koch brothers. That's 1/1,000,000th of 1%. Who else? Anyway, the Republican bullshit about health care just continues to come on. Those of you who are concerned, by the way, that maybe Obamacare won't fail. Oh my God, what if President Trump is wrong? We let Obamacare fail, it doesn't fail. Well, don't worry, people. Donald Trump and the Republicans will make sure that Obamacare fails. It is in their ability to do that. So, as has been typical for all these years, they will make it fail where they have the ability to make it succeed. They will choose to let it fail, and then they will come out and say, see, we told you it was going to fail. Leaving millions of Americans without health insurance, leaving thousands of them to die each year. Just understand what the game field is and the game plan is at this point. One piece of bullshit after another. They're going to make a perfect plan. Latest thing was, we're just going to repeal it, but we're going to let the repeal wait for 2 years. We're going to delay the repeal for 2 years. This was Mitch McConnell's plan. I've spoken at length on this show about Mitch McConnell, something that's now becoming conventional wisdom. Mitch McConnell doesn't give a shit about anything except Mitch McConnell and his power. The whole idea of we'll vote to repeal it, the repeal will take effect in 2 years and we could fix it. You've already indicated you've got no fix for it. You've got nothing that will improve upon it that you're willing to do. So what's going to happen? You're going to be able to spend 2 years going, look, we did what we promised. We repealed Obamacare. And then you won't get voted out of office in 2018 because the people won't yet be feeling the effects. They won't have lost their health insurance. Why? Because the repeal wouldn't have taken effect yet. It's only the poor schmucks who are going to be up for election sometime after that, assuming that it doesn't just get put off. Well, that goes back to Republican bullshit. It turns out that Mitch McConnell has been lying to his own Republican caucus about the bill. And that was a source of some of the resentment that led to the bill ultimately being rejected even by a few Republicans. He was going to the moderates who were opposed to the bill because it was going to kill too many of their constituents and saying, don't worry, it's all bullshit. None of this is ever really going to happen. And then he was going to the conservatives who were opposing the bill because not enough Americans were going to be dead and saying, we're going to get this done. We're going to do this. This is going to work. And it turns out that the left hand actually found out what the right hand was being told. And so Republicans started being a little bit resentful that McConnell was playing them for chumps. And presumably said, Mr. Majority Leader, we play the American public for chumps. We don't play each other for chumps, or trumps, either one. What's going on with this, pushing it off into the future, in case you don't know, is it's a game of hot potato. The bill's a piece of shit. The Republicans know that. It's going to hurt people. It's going to hurt health care. People are going to die, but it's going to help Republican campaign contributions from rich people by lowering their taxes. And now it's been all about managing to set it up so you can blame somebody else for its failure. This is why the Republican governors came out a couple of weeks ago and vocally opposed the bill. Because it turns out they understood what the American public doesn't, which is that what the Republicans in the Senate were mostly doing was passing the buck onto Republican governors. Ultimately, the bill was going to fail and hurt a lot of people, and the Republicans in Congress are going to be able to say, well, it's not our fault. If your state didn't do this right, it's their fault. And that would have dumped the hot potato onto the Republican governors. So they're busy stabbing each other in the back. Oh, this figures to be fun. Okay, moving on. Some other news that you might have missed. The company Hobby Lobby agreed to forfeit 5,500 artifacts smuggled out of Iraq. Now, why does this matter? Well, for some of you, the company Hobby Lobby may ring a bell. Hobby Lobby was the plaintiff in an important Supreme Court case a few years ago that allowed businesses with strong religious beliefs to basically be exempt from provisions of Obamacare that required them to, among other things, provide reproductive services, reproductive counseling to their employees. Hobby Lobby said, our religious beliefs are offended. We are good Christians and we are opposed to sex. And therefore, we don't want to be doing anything that will make it easier for people to have sex. Well, they stood on their conservative religious principles and the Supreme Court agreed and said pieces of shit like this company should be able to avoid providing reproductive services under Obamacare. So sex is an affront to this company's religious beliefs. Theft? Yeah, that's cool. Theft is all right. I don't think Jesus didn't have any problem with theft, right? Damien, I'm not real up on my Bible. I don't know if you are, but I'm pretty sure Jesus was all about sex. He didn't have any problem with theft. They were trading and benefiting from stolen artifacts smuggled out of Iraq. This did not bother them. It's just all bullshit coming out of the right. There's no integrity. There's no consistency of opinion. If your religious beliefs are so strong that you don't want to pay for health coverage for your employees that might allow them to purchase birth control, oh my God, then maybe you shouldn't be engaging in theft. Just maybe. But that's okay, because Hobby Lobby, how did they respond when they were caught? Well, simple. They took their strong religious morals and they tried to lie their way out of it. Apparently, Jesus had no problem with lying either. Lying and stealing. The Jesus way, I guess. I don't know. Just no sex. That's the Jesus they know. They tried to lie their way out of it. Who knew? We didn't know anything. This is being laughed at, basically, by everyone who knows how this works and says, you can't be this ignorant. Meanwhile, does this sound familiar? This is our entire Republican government. Hey, we're not crooks. We're just fucking morons. Give us a break. Right? This is the Donald Trump Jr. defense. This is the Donald Trump Sr. defense. We're not crooks. We're morons. Apparently, Jesus has no problem with morons either, I guess. So Hobby Lobby got caught engaging in furthering theft, and they tried to lie their way out of it. Way to go, Supreme Court. Way to advance their religious beliefs. That, of course, puts me in mind, again, this religion. I've talked about this before. I don't know what your religion is, but frankly, if you think that your God is all about not having sex and discriminating against people whose lifestyles are such that you do not approve of, whereas depriving people of health insurance and food, nutrition, education, that doesn't offend your God, I strongly suggest you find a new God. Because your God's a piece of shit. And you probably need to find a new one. So, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the gnome, the perjurer-in-chief, now that's too stiff competition. I can't say that. Just went to speak to an anti-LGBTQ group in secret, behind closed doors. That's right, the Attorney General of the United States thinks that it's okay to talk to a bunch of bigots and scumbags and to make sure that the American public doesn't know what he's doing. I'm just wondering if when he's having these secret meetings with hate groups, Is he still on the public dole? Is he collecting a paycheck? And is there some reason we shouldn't be privy to what he's saying to these people in these meetings? I understand he's not giving a speech as a private citizen to a financial firm. But isn't it possible that as the Attorney General of the United States, we should know what he's saying to these hate groups? Whatever. There's no reason, I guess, to ever know what the hell this Attorney General is saying. Electric cars have been in the news. More not so good news. I guess the good news is that electric cars, the technology is improving dramatically. The number of sales has gone up faster than anybody has expected. The technology is improving faster than anybody expected. That's all the good news. Well, that's good news to Americans and, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, humans. It's not necessarily so good for most of the businesses that actually run this country right now, the fossil fuel companies and much of the car industry. Certainly, it's not good for the Koch brothers, who have a large role in running the Republican Party and whose tens of billions of dollars in mostly inherited fortune are the result of, to a large extent, of their investment in fossil fuels and petrochemicals. So how are we responding to this good news about climate, the growth of the technology and the purchase of electric cars? Simple. We buy out our states and we make our state legislators and governors, when they're Republicans, put the brakes on the sale of electric cars. Let's take away any incentives that we're offering to buy electric cars. Let's grease the skids for people to go back and buy those gas guzzlers. Because this is America. We shouldn't be buying Chevy Bolts and Teslas. We should be buying Hummers. We can't buy Hummers, I don't think, anymore. What are the big pickup trucks and SUV? Tundras, Ridgelines, whatever. That's what we should be buying in 2017. You really need to figure out which side you're on and who's on your side. So yeah, Republicans and their supporters are putting the brakes on our efforts to actually make a more responsible country and a cleaner planet. Trump's deregulatory task force has been in the news. Donald Trump put together a deregulatory task force. It's always a good idea to look for ways to improve and streamline the regulations that we have. Times change, technology changes. Some regulations we've had in the past are no longer necessary. That's fine. When Democrats are in office, they're always engaging in top-to-bottom government reviews to try to improve the efficiency of government. Make no mistake that that's not what's happening here. This deregulatory task force is not run by regulators, consumer advocates, people who have a know of what's good for the world. It's being run by the people who've spent their lives being paid huge amounts of money by big corporations to make sure that government doesn't do anything it can to protect the interests of Americans, as opposed to the interests of wealthy corporations and their ability to destroy the lives of those Americans in the pursuit of even greater profits. So we know that Trump's deregulatory task force is made up of industry lobbyists and other scumbags who are busy. That's right. I understand liberals get accused of saying Republicans are killing people only because Republicans are killing people. Because this is going to kill people, and it's going to injure people, and it's going to make people sicker. We're going to take away regulations so that businesses don't have to be responsible for the damage that they do. This, along with the electric car stories, brings us back in mind to a discussion we had a few weeks ago about the concept of market externalities. I like the idea of subsidizing electric cars. I would prefer to see huge taxes on cars that are having a more negative impact on our environment. In other words, reducing the negative externalities that come from buying big gas-guzzling vehicles that kill people and destroy the environment. Same thing with regulations. I want companies to be responsible for the damages that they do. This isn't liberal economics. This is economics. This is conservative economics. If you are a conservative who believes in market efficiency, you do not believe in externalities. By definition, they are market inefficiency. They create market failure. So this is not about conservative versus liberal. This is about people who have an interest in the good of the planet and human beings versus the most skanky whores on the planet. And a couple real quick to finish the news. a new Pew poll came out. Republican voters think colleges are bad for the United States. When I talk about anti-education, anti-reality, anti-sanity is what the Republican Party is right now, let me repeat that poll. A majority of Republican voters think colleges are bad for America. I think they should go a little bit broader. Do you think education is bad for America? Absolutely, because education makes people more liberal, you know, and liberals are bad for America. I know that because I pulled it out of my ass. Therefore, I think that if you get educated, then you don't pull these things out of your ass. That's bad for America. 54% in 2015, 54% of Republicans thought that colleges had a positive impact. 36% of Republicans think colleges have a positive impact on America. Just let that one roll around your brain for a few minutes. We're trying to finish, so I can't pause to let it roll around your brain. You might want to hit pause for a second and think about that. Colleges are bad for America. Broader idea, education is bad for America. The antidote to education, Fox News and its ilk. Okay, let's leave it at that. A couple more items we may get back to next time, but I do want to spend a little bit of time, because we've been promising this a bit, talking about what Donald Trump has accomplished so far. And when I say accomplished, we like to title this What Trump Has Wrought, because accomplished sounds too positive, and there's not a whole lot of positive. And yet when my conservative friends say to me, you know, you liberals have been up in arms, you're completely overreacting. What has he done so far? What have they done? I've indicated before, the answer to that is they've done a hell of a lot more than anybody in this country knows, because most of what they're doing is not being publicized. Most of this being done through regulations, rules being enacted or taken away by various agencies, some of which we've talked about already, some of which we'll talk about over the next few minutes. Most of the time, we don't know anything about these things. These are all things going under the radar. As I've liked to say, in the history of the world, nobody has ever called a press conference while robbing a bank. So they're doing all these things as much as they can in secret. And there's too much going on, like Russia. And I understand even liberals saying, let's see something other than Russia. Because we really need to know some of the stuff that they're doing. Well, let's just start today. I want to do a quick review of something called the Congressional Review Act, or the CRA. The Congressional Review Act is a little-known law that allows the president, the incoming president of the United States, given about 6 months, to repeal recently enacted regulations or laws done under the previous administration. He has 6 months to do that, and because it cannot be filibustered, they could do it with a bare majority in Congress. Well, of course, Republicans have a majority in Congress. So they were able to rush through a lot of things through the Congressional Review Act. First CRA bill was an anti-corruption measure. That's right. The first bill that they passed was to repeal an Obama effort to force oil and other companies to disclose payments to foreign governments to reduce foreign corruption. Now, this was a big one for ExxonMobil. Sound familiar? That's right. Their head was now the Secretary of State of the United States. Maybe this is part of his reward for joining this catastrophe of an administration. ExxonMobil's been pushing this because bribing foreign governments is important to its business model. Well, there's two ways you can go with that. You could say that there's a lot of corruption in the world, so let's join in. That's the apparent Republican proposal. Or you could say there's a lot of corruption in the world, let's create a regulatory regime that punishes companies that succeed through corruption. And let's try to create a more clean business and world environment. Understand, among other things, I think is fun about this law that you need to understand, who benefits from payments to foreign governments? It's not the small companies that Republicans and everybody in our government claims to love. It's not small businesses. These are the big multinational businesses that get to buy through corruption what they want. It's killing small businesses, even a little bit more, and helping the most corrupt big businesses. Oh, there's a real positive. One of the highest profile Congressional Review Act actions gave internet service providers permission to track and sell customer data without permission. That's right. If your son goes on to Pornhub, well, you better hope that you don't have a computer shared with the entire family, because you're going to expect lots of pop-ups, emails, whatever, from all kinds of businesses trying to sell you stuff related to sexual activity. You'll get stuff in the mail because they'll be selling this information. Under Obama, they had to ask your permission before they could sell your personal private data and where you've been. The ISPs didn't like that. They could make more money by selling your private information. Way to go. That brings us back to the idea of net neutrality. The idea that internet service providers should not be able to put up barricades to certain news sources that they want to slow down and give preference to others that they want to speed up. Pretty soon, all of your news will be Fox News. Let's see, there's the nullification of the stream protection rule of the Interior Department, addressing the impact of mining operations on surface and groundwater. We've talked about this in the past. Much mining, especially coal mining in America, is done through something called mountaintop removal mining, where they literally blow the shit out of the top of a mountain so that they can get at the ore, or coal, or whatever ore they're looking for underneath. Well, what happens to the top of the mountain? It tends to roll down the mountain, creating toxic sludge, damming up streams, putting toxic waste into streams and rivers, which have a huge impact on the people around them. Now, if you're concerned about a functioning free market and you understand the concept of market externalities, you think that's not a good thing. They should have to clean up after themselves. You shouldn't get to sell your product by basically destroying others who have no idea what you are doing and are not benefiting from what you are selling. So now what we're going to do is we're going to allow these companies to screw people. We've talked about this before. Congratulations, all you people in coal industry who voted for these jackasses. Not only will you now not have jobs, you won't have water either. Got to make you feel good. Let's see, there's making it easier for severely mentally ill Americans to buy guns. That's right. What we need in America is more guns. A country that already has more gun deaths than almost everybody else in the world combined, I think. Dramatically more than any other civilized nation. We had, at least as of a couple of years ago, we had more handgun deaths in America than they had in Afghanistan, which was involved in civil war. But this is a biggie for the NRA, who thinks that the only antidote to a severely mentally ill person with a gun is a less mentally ill member of the NRA with a gun. So, yeah, let's have more Americans buy guns. That's a good idea. This is payback. The NRA, of course, supported the Donald when he ran for president. Let's see, there's the rule requiring employers in hazardous industries to keep better records of on-the-job injuries. Obama required that these companies keep a 5-year record of workplace injuries. Oh, get over yourself. Why should we know about how companies are injuring or killing their employees? Just because we have 50 to 70,000 American workers a year dying from occupational-related diseases and workplace injuries, that's a 9/11 every couple of weeks. What the hell? The best way to deal with that is to make sure that we don't know about it so we can't do anything to reduce the amount of workplace deaths and injuries. When I talk about more dead people and more injured people, I'm not speaking apocryphally. I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking literally. There's allowing states to withhold federal family planning money from abortion providers. That's right, if you provide an abortion, you can't even get federal money to try to make abortions less prevalent by allowing people to buy contraceptives and to make better decisions when it comes to family planning so they don't have unwanted pregnancies. So states can withhold federal family planning dollars from abortion providers even when they're just doing family planning. Ironically, what will the result of this be? Ding, ding, ding. More abortions from the people who supposedly are motivated by stamping out abortion. There's nullification of the rule finalized by the Department of Defense and others, including NASA, concerning contractor compliance with labor laws. Federal contractors need not report every labor law violation anymore when applying for federal money. As Attorney General Sessions said when he was in the Senate, it's not the government's job to be telling who the government does business with. That's right. He actually said that. It's not the government's job to be determining who the government does business with. I, as a liberal, believe that it is the government's job to not do business with criminals. And if businesses are violating labor laws and harming their employees, we should know about that, at the very least, before we decide whether or not to do business with them. Once again, not supporting the interests of the American public, supporting the interests of criminals and murderers. There's limiting the ability of states to set up retirement accounts for workers. We'll talk about this in our next show because this is going to take a little bit longer, a little bit further discussion about what this is all about, and I don't want to rush through this at the end of our show. Policies that Obama implemented to try to help workers. Efforts to improve education, increase accountability. We'll leave this as the last one we do today. School districts under Trump now have more say in how to measure the progress of their students. Wow, look at the way he drooled on himself while he was eating. That drool is a 6th grade kind of drool if I've ever seen it. Yes, sirree. Instead of having some kind of national standards about whether these students are actually learning anything, let school districts tell you what a great job they're doing without any kind of federal standards. What to include on report cards, how to define success. What a great idea. That's really going to move us forward. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Lots more to discuss next week. We hope you'll stay with us. You've been listening to Forward Nation Radio with me, David Leventhal, in case you forgot about that in the intervening 30 minutes. Like looking forward, go to forwardnationradio.com. That's forwardnationradio.com and get the full experience. You'll see the video from this and every episode there and on our YouTube channel as well. By the way, this makes a great subject for a party. Invite all your friends, relatives, everybody you know over, and you could have a Forward Nation Radio party. You could just like binge on Forward Nation Radio. Can we turn this into a drinking game?
Yes.
Every time Dave curses maybe or says Trump, you have to take a drink or something like that. Something non-alcoholic, of course, because we do not want to encourage irresponsible behavior, especially if you're going to be getting into your cars. Anyway, don't miss the next Forward Nation Radio podcast on Podbean at podbean.com. Watch us on our website, our YouTube channel. I don't remember where the hell I was in this goodbye. If you love what you heard, even like what you heard, or can tolerate what you heard, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, tell your friends, spread the word. Forward Nation Radio. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Bye.
You've been listening to Forward Nation Radio with David Leventhal.